The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Let me ask you something. What if everything you believed about yourself was a lie? What if your job, your name, your title, your social mask, all of it, was just a carefully built illusion? Would you still recognize yourself? If it all fell away? This is the beginning of a spiritual awakening. Not lights, not angels, not peace, but chaos, but collapse, but fire. And most people don't survive it. Not because it kills the body, but because it dismantles everything the ego ever built. Asterisk. There comes a moment in every person's life when the carefully constructed identity begins to tremble when the stories we've told ourselves no longer fit the shape of our truth. What we call a spiritual awakening is not the discovery of something new, but the collapse of something false. It is the quiet, terrifying unraveling of the ego, the mask we've worn so long that we mistook it for our face. The ego is not evil. It is necessary. It is the structure that allowed us to survive in a world that demanded conformity. It gave us names, roles, expectations, achievements. It told us who we were supposed to be. But the tragedy is, many of us became so entangled in the role that we forgot the actor behind it. We confused survival with selfhood. And in doing so, we locked away the very soul that longed to be free. The moment awakening begins, the ego senses danger. It senses annihilation, and so it fights. It floods us with fear, shame, guilt. It reminds us of everything we've built, our status, our reputation, our relationships, and it whispers, if you change, you'll lose all of this. And it's not lying. Because true awakening does not negotiate with illusion. It demands that we let it all fall. This is why so many people turn back. They start to glimpse the soul beneath the surface, the part of them that is vast, eternal, wild, but they cannot bear the cost. They want transformation without surrender. They want light without fire. But you cannot carry your old self into your rebirth. The ego must die. And it does not go quietly. The death of the ego feels like madness. The mind begins to question everything, every belief, every value, every relationship. It's as if the inner architecture of your world is collapsing, beam by beam. And it is, because that structure was not built for your truth. It was built for your approval, your safety, your image. And your soul does not want to be safe. It wants to be free. Many mistake this process for failure. They think they're breaking down. In truth, they are breaking open. The fear they feel is not a sign to retreat. It is the gateway to liberation. Because once the ego begins to crumble, something ancient and powerful stirs beneath it. The self, not the persona, not the mask, but the original, untamed essence that has been waiting patiently beneath the performance of identity. This self cannot be taught. It cannot be molded. It emerges only when the false is stripped away, and its emergence is not gentle. It's disruptive. It shatters illusions. It exposes lies. It asks you to walk away from everything that no longer resonates, not with your mind, but with your soul. And this is the terrifying beauty of awakening. It does not add anything to you. It subtracts everything that you are not. To walk this path is to endure a crucifixion of the ego, to feel the emptiness of not knowing who you are anymore, and to trust that in that emptiness, something sacred is being born. It is a psychological death that precedes spiritual life, and very few had the courage to go through it. But those who do, those who dare to let go, emerge not as improved versions of their old selves, but as something entirely different. Not refined, not polished, but real, the self revealed, the soul risen, the truth unhidden. And it all begins with the courage to let the ego die. Asterisk. There is a part of you that you have spent your entire life trying not to see. it lives behind your smiles, behind your habits, behind your fears. It is the part of you that you were told was unworthy of love, too angry, too selfish, too strange, too much. And so, long ago, you pushed it down, you buried it deep, you denied its existence, but you didn't destroy it. You simply made it unconscious. And now, in the light of awakening, it begins to stir. This is the shadow, the hidden counterpart to your conscious self. It is not evil, though it may frighten you. It is not your enemy, though it may feel like one. It is the totality of all you have rejected in yourself, in order to belong, in order to be accepted, in order to survive. And the moment you step onto the path of true inner work, the shadow greets you like a mirror you cannot look away from. Most people believe awakening is about light. What they do not realize is that to truly see the light, one must first pass through the darkness. Not the world's darkness, but one's own. The unhealed wounds, the suppressed rage, the shameful memories, the distorted beliefs. All that has been hidden comes forward, not to punish, but to be acknowledged. Not to destroy, but to be integrated. It is in this confrontation that people falter. They encounter a version of themselves they do not recognize, or worse, they do recognize, and they recoil. A shadow does not flatter. It does not perform. It does not conform to the idea of who you think you are. It reveals the raw, the primal, the untamed truths that the ego has spent a lifetime covering up. And the ego is terrified of what the shadow knows. But here lies the paradox. What you fear in the shadow is not its darkness. It is its truth. Because within the shadow is not just the pain you've avoided, but the power you've abandoned, the authenticity you've suppressed, the fire you've extinguished to stay safe, to stay small, to stay accepted. The shadow is not just the container of your wounds. It is the guardian of your wholeness. To face, it is to come into contact with your humanity. It is to stop pretending, stop performing, stop projecting. It is to stop blaming the world and instead ask, what within me have I not yet loved? This question opens a door that cannot be closed. Because once you see the shadow, you cannot unsee it. And once you begin the work of integrating it, you begin to reclaim parts of your soul that were exiled long ago. This work is not clean. It is not glamorous. It will not make you popular. But it will make you real. It will make you honest. It will tear down the inner walls that have kept you divided against yourself. And as the shadow begins to integrate, you'll notice something extraordinary. The very things you are ashamed of now become your teachers. The rage becomes passion. The fear becomes insight. The sorrow becomes compassion. You do not get rid of these parts, you alchemize them. This is what transformation truly means, not becoming something else, but becoming whole. It is not the elimination of darkness, but the expansion of consciousness to include it. Only when you can sit with your shadow without judgment, without fear, without running, do you begin to understand who you truly are. Not a collection of polished traits, but a totality, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, all working together. In harmony, a shadow self does not destroy, it reveals. It strips away the illusions. It invites you to become honest. And in that honesty, in that raw and unfiltered encounter with the parts of yourself you were taught to hate, something ancient awakens. A deeper love. A fierce self-acceptance. A truth that does not flinch. And in that moment, you are not just healed, you are transformed. Asterisk at first, the awakening arrives like a whisper. A subtle discontent. A quiet discomfort with the life you once called your own. The colors of your world begin to fade. The conversations feel hollow. The routines you once followed without question start to feel like chains. You begin to notice the falseness in your smile, the exhaustion beneath your ambition, the longing hidden behind your distractions. You can no longer pretend that everything is fine. Something inside you has shifted, and it will not let you go back. This is where the lonely road begins. What no one tells you is that the spiritual journey does not start in joy. It starts in isolation. Not because the world abandons you, but because you are no longer willing to abandon yourself. And in reclaiming your soul, you begin to separate from the very systems and people that once validated your existence. You stop playing roles. You stop agreeing with lies. You stop performing the version of you that made everyone else comfortable. And with every act of inner truth, something outside of you begins to fall away. At first, it feels liberating. There is clarity. There is relief. There is a fierce kind of honesty that ignites your spirit. But slowly, the silence creeps in. You realize that many of the people you loved cannot follow you into this new space. They are still speaking the language of illusion, and you no longer understand it. You reach for the familiar, but it no longer nourishes you. You try to explain, but words fall short. And so, you retreat not out of pride, not out of superiority, but out of necessity. This is not a punishment. This is a passage. To awaken is to lose the comfort of belonging in order to discover the truth of being. And that transition is marked by solitude so profound it echoes through your bones. It is not simply the absence of others, it is the confrontation with yourself. The self without distractions, the self without applause, the self stripped of its attachments, its validations, its illusions. This is where most people turn back. The silence becomes too loud, the emptiness too unbearable. They return to the noise, not because they love it, but because it saves them from having to feel, from having to see, from having to confront the void they carry inside. But if you are willing to stay, to endure the silence, you begin to see that the loneliness is not empty. It is full of the parts of yourself you left behind to fit in, to be accepted, to feel loved. The loneliness is the home of the abandoned self, the child who learned to hide her truth, the teenager who dimmed his light, the adult who built a life from shoulds instead of wants. All of them are there, waiting, not to haunt you, but to be held. You begin to speak to them in the stillness. You begin to hear their grief, their longing, their wisdom. And something miraculous happens. You stop feeling alone. Because for the first time, you are with yourself. Not the self the world taught you to be, but the self you truly are, beneath the masks and the noise and the fear. And in that sacred meeting, something ancient is remembered. The world may not understand this version of you. They may call you distant, strange, too deep, too sensitive. They may say you've changed. And you have. Because you are no longer willing to betray your soul to be accepted. You are no longer willing to shrink into spaces that cannot hold your truth. And though that choice may cost you relationships, it gives you something far greater: integrity. To walk this path is to learn that solitude is not exile, it is communion. It is in solitude that you hear the voice of your own soul. It is in solitude that you feel the presence of something eternal. And it is in solitude that you come to know that you are never truly alone, only disconnected from your essence. But let us not romanticize this path. It is not easy. There will be days when the weight of your aloneness feels unbearable. Days when the silence turns to sorrow. Days when you will long for the comfort of the old world, even if it was false. You will crave a hand to hold, a voice to reassure you, a sign that you are not insane for tearing down everything you once believed. In those moments, remember this: you are not lost, you are shedding. You are not broken, you are breaking open. And the loneliness is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is shaping you, softening you, preparing you to hold more truth than you ever thought possible. Eventually, the silence begins to speak. It does not scream like the world. It whispers. And what it whispers is truth. The kind of truth that cannot be found in books or sermons or borrowed beliefs. It is the truth born of your own soul. It is the wisdom that emerges only when everything else has fallen away. And as you walk further, you begin to meet others not many, but a few who are also walking this path. You recognize them not by their words, but by their energy, their depth, their presence. They do not need to fix you, save you, or entertain you. They simply see you, because they too have walked through fire. They too have sat in the silence. They too have chosen truth over comfort. These are your true companions. Not always present, not always near, but real. And in their presence, you feel something rare, belonging without needing to belong. Connection without compromise. Love without conditions. But before you can meet them, you must first meet yourself. You must walk the lonely road. You must sit in the silence. You must let the old world fall. And as it does, you will feel like you are losing everything. But what you are really losing is the false self, the self that was never truly you. The road will test you. It will strip you. It will isolate you. But it will also transform you. Because it is only in the silence, in the solitude, in the sacred aloneness, that the soul can finally speak its truth. And when it does, you will know. Longer fear being alone. You will fear, instead, living one more day without your soul. Transformation is not a gentle unfolding. It is not a graceful ascent into light. It is a tearing down, a burning through, a breaking apart of everything that once gave you a sense of identity. The romanticized image of awakening, the sudden burst of peace, the effortless clarity, the arrival into bliss, is a fantasy that comforts the mind, but denies the soul its full journey. True transformation is not illumination without pain. It is the agony of being reshaped by fire, refined through pressure, reassembled after being dismantled from the inside out. Most people believe transformation is about becoming something better, something higher, something more evolved. But the truth is far more humbling. It is not about becoming more, it is about becoming less. Less of what is false, less of what is borrowed, less of what was never truly yours. It is the death of the performative self, the surrender of control, the unmasking of the ego that has long ruled your life in disguise. This is why real transformation feels like destruction. It begins with confusion. The things you once found meaning in begin to dissolve. The values you built your life around no longer satisfy you. The roles you played begin to suffocate. You cannot explain it. You simply feel the ground beneath you shifting, and nothing you try seems to hold. What once worked no longer does. What once made sense now feels hollow. And so the fire comes. The fire is not an external catastrophe. It is an internal collapse. The fire is the confrontation with everything that is no longer aligned with your soul. It burns through illusions, attachments, self-deceptions. It doesn't ask for your permission. It arrives when the soul is ready, even if the mind is not. And it does not leave until everything that is not true has been reduced to ash. People often mistake this process for failure. They believe something is wrong with them. They say, "I've lost myself." But what they don't realize is that the self they are losing was never truly them. It was a survival strategy, a social mask, a collection of defenses that kept the pain at bay. Transformation strips all of that away. Not to punish, but to reveal. It is in this revelation that the terror lies. Because the emptiness that follows is not peaceful. It is disorienting. Who are you without your past? Who are you without your wounds? Who are you without your labels, your ambitions, your carefully curated identity? The answer does not come quickly. It comes in fragments, in whispers, in long nights of silence, where the only voice you hear is the echo of your own uncertainty. But this uncertainty is sacred. It is the womb of the soul's rebirth. Just as the caterpillar dissolves into chaos before becoming the butterfly, the human psyche must go through dissolution before it can truly evolve. There is no bypassing this stage. There is no skipping the burning. It is here, in the rawness of the unknown, that the deeper self begins to emerge, not as an idea, but as an experience. This deeper self cannot be built through effort. It must be allowed. It comes not from striving, but from surrender. And surrender, in this context, is not passivity. It is courage. The courage to stop resisting what is falling apart. The courage to sit with the pain rather than numb it. The courage to let go of everything that once defined you, even when you don't know what will replace it. Transformation demands your trust, not in the world, but in the deeper intelligence within you that knows the way forward, even when you do not. This is the soul's wisdom, the inner fire that guides you through the dark. But it speaks a different language. It does not shout. It does not argue. It does not prove. It simply burns, and in that burning, it purifies. You begin to feel this shift not all at once, but slowly, subtly. The same things that once triggered you lose their power. The people who once dictated your self-worth no longer hold that position. You stop seeking validation from outside because you begin to feel a quiet, unfamiliar presence inside, a presence that does not need approval, that does not beg for attention, that does not waver in the face of rejection. This is not enlightenment. This is embodiment. This is what it means to come home to yourself after being lost in the world for so long. You no longer chase the light, you become it, because you've walked through the dark and survived. Not by avoiding the pain, but by letting it shape you. By letting it teach you what comfort never could. True transformation humbles you. It softens your judgments, deepens your empathy, and silences your arrogance. It reminds you that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see, that most masks are born from wounds, and that behind every defense is a deep longing to be seen. You stop needing to fix people. You start holding space. Because you know, from your own journey, that the only true healer is love, and love cannot be forced, it can only be offered. And so, the fire that once felt like destruction becomes a kind of blessing. Not the superficial kind, but the kind that carves your soul open and fills the hollow with light. A light that is not loud, not showy, not self-righteous, but steady, unwavering, real. A light that says, I have seen myself. I have faced the abyss, and I have returned whole. This return is not a climax, it is a beginning. A beginning that emerges not from the pursuit of perfection, but from the ashes of all you thought you needed to be. You rise not because you are more than others, but because you are finally yourself. No longer chasing some ideal, no longer hiding behind performance, but grounded in something deeper, more eternal, more true. This is the fire's gift. Not a better version of who you were, but the emergence of who you were before the world told you who to be. It is a rebirth not into fantasy, but into presence. Not into spiritual glamour, but into sacred responsibility. The responsibility to live from your soul, speak from your truth, and love from your whole self-scars, shadows and all. And once you've walked through that fire, you carry it with you, not as a wound, but as a flame. A quiet, steady flame that lights the way for others still lost in the dark. Not by preaching, not by saving, but by simply being what you've become. Whole, awake, alive. Asterisk, if you're going through this now, don't quit. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are simply waking up. And the path of awakening is not for the weak. It's for the courageous. It's for the ones who dare to face themselves. So tell me, Are you ready to die to who you were? So, you can finally become who you truly are? Drop a comment below if you're on this path. Share this with someone going through the fire. Like, subscribe, and remember, this is not the end. It's the beginning of you.